Roman villas weren't just luxurious estates, they were finely tuned machines of economy, culture, and architecture. From the countryside of Etruria to the coastal cliffs of Campania, Roman elites orchestrated household life with astounding precision. And in today's video, we're unpacking how they did it. Before we dive in, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a deep dive into history's smartest designs. What if the ancient world had already cracked the code on running a perfect household? To understand the efficiency of Roman villas, we need to see them not just as houses, but as integrated estates that merged business, leisure, and ideology. The term villa itself was never simple. Cato called it a farm, Varro wanted it profitable, and Pliny made it poetic. Roman villas were dynamic spaces that evolved from agrarian outposts to architectural showcases of elite identity. Their organization was far from haphazard. Each villa was a self-sustaining ecosystem. The core of villa design was a tripartite layout: the villa urbana, the villa rustica, and the villa fructuaria. The villa urbana served as the luxurious residence for the landowner and guests. Here, rooms followed urban architectural patterns, but were flipped to embrace nature. Atriums came after gardens, not before. The peristyle and open-air courtyards weren't decorative afterthoughts. They were engineered for light, airflow, and panoramic countryside views. Everything from layout to decor was curated to reflect Roman values of odium, a cultivated leisure infused with intellectual pursuit. The Villa Rustica housed the workforce and agricultural infrastructure. Slave quarters, stables, workshops, and threshing floors were often placed farther from the central residence, but laid out with clear logistical reasoning. Their distance ensured quiet for the master, but their alignment followed the sun, wind patterns, and workflow. For instance, animal waste would be carried downhill, grain storage would be located where moisture couldn't seep in, and even dung heaps would be positioned for composting efficiency. Meanwhile, the Villa Fructuaria functioned as the estate's logistical nerve center, a hub of storage, processing, and preservation. Here, wine presses, olive mills, granaries, and storerooms reflected a precision that modern agronomists admire. These were profit machines. Romans calculated harvest yields, amortized transport costs, and optimized labor to turn countryside holdings into financial engines. Pliny didn't just enjoy his seaside villa's view, he calculated how close it was to the port for shipping produce. But villas weren't just efficient, they were ideological. Owning land was a Roman moral high ground. Villas were monuments to ethical farming and aristocratic virtue. That's why even literary figures like Varro obsessed over them. A villa proved that a Roman citizen was anchored in tradition, discipline, and natural order. Roman architecture fused these ideals with physical design. Peristyles weren't just aesthetic, they allowed constant surveillance of house slaves and created regulated spaces for movement. Libraries and triclinia, dining rooms, sat beside bath complexes and gardens, forming a rhythm of work, thought, and pleasure. Walls bore frescoes of myth and morality. Even the gardens were symbolic, with fish ponds and aviaries showcasing command over nature. Efficiency extended to location. Villas weren't built anywhere. The wealthy chose land near ports, roads, or towns, yet rural enough for solitude and farming. Coastal villas like those in the Bay of Naples combined production with sea breeze cooling and spectacular views, a double dividend of profit and prestige. Inland villas were oriented to maximize light and warmth, with terracing used to control irrigation. This precision wasn't limited to Italy. In Gaul, Hispania, and North Africa, Roman-style villas adapted to local conditions but preserved core principles. Porticoed residences with winged corridors or peristyles were common across the empire. Even in Britain, villa layouts showed Roman design logic: central courtyards, storage annexes, heated bathing rooms, and communal dining halls. But managing a villa was no solo act. Behind every efficient estate was a hierarchy of stewards, slaves, and seasonal laborers. Roles were strictly defined. The villicus, or estate manager, oversaw day-to-day operations. Specialized laborers handled pressing, fermenting, herding, pruning, or sowing. Elite owners might only visit seasonally, trusting written ledgers and villa reports to track production, yield, and expenses. The villas also adapted to change. In later centuries, fortified walls and towers emerged as villas became vulnerable to raids. Yet the internal logic remained: central courtyards for coordination, modular storage, and architectural fluidity. Even as imperial politics shifted, the villa stood firm as a model of control. Roman writers like Columella emphasized organization down to the last bolt. His manuals detail optimal placement of compost heaps, rotation of crops, and timing of slave schedules. These weren't just suggestions, they were systems. Think of it as the first-century version of household operations management. Technology helped too. Hypocaust heating, aqueduct-fed plumbing, wine fermentation tanks, and rainwater harvesting made villas not just practical, but advanced. At places like Setta Finestra, archaeologists have found layout blueprints that suggest industrial planning with zones for processing, packing, and dispatch. Villas were ancient logistics hubs built to scale. But let's not forget aesthetics. Efficiency didn't mean bland. Roman villas were celebrations of taste. Mosaic floors, marble columns, painted ceilings, and imported statues coexisted with barns and oil presses. Even working spaces had flair. Villas mirrored Roman identity, stern in purpose, lavish in execution. This organization wasn't limited to Italy's elite. In provincial settings, native traditions fused with Roman blueprints. In Gaul, wooden farmhouses evolved into stone villas. In North Africa, defensive layouts merged with Roman peristyles. Even in Judea and the Levant, villa forms emerged in Hellenistic Roman hybrids. The villa became a transcontinental symbol of order. Ultimately, the Roman villa teaches us that architecture is ideology made solid. The organization was the spine of Roman power, from the empire to the estate. In villas, every corridor, threshold, and terrace served a purpose, managing goods, people, and perception. They weren't just houses, they were systems, machines of production, statements of status, centers of life. In addition to practical and ideological organization, Roman villas also served as cultural nerve centers that promoted intellectual and social life. Many villas contained private libraries, writing rooms, and philosophical gardens. Owners like Cicero and Seneca used their villas not only for agricultural administration, but as retreats for reading, writing, and reflection. The villa thus became both a productive and contemplative space, where governance of land coincided with governance of the mind. Banquets held in beautifully decorated triclinia were not mere social indulgences. They were carefully curated events where political alliances were forged and literary debates were staged. Even the layout of guest rooms and the selection of artworks within them were deliberate efforts to express erudition and social refinement. In short, villas were expressions of Roman cultural capital as much as economic ones. Moreover, the seasonal rhythms of villa life were tightly calibrated with agricultural cycles, religious festivals, and civic obligations. The Roman calendar dictated sowing, harvesting, pruning, and fallowing, and villa routines mirrored these shifts. Labor was deployed with seasonal intensity, and spaces within the villa adapted accordingly. Storerooms were emptied in spring, filled by harvest, and sealed in winter. Bathing rituals shifted with the climate, and seasonal decorations changed as offerings to household gods. Villas were flexible but not chaotic. They followed an annual tempo that fused cosmology with economic planning. Even absentee landowners timed their visits to coincide with key rituals or harvest festivals, emphasizing their role as both spiritual and agricultural stewards. These cycles weren't rustic relics. They were strategic. Through the organization of time and space, Roman villas embedded elite families deeper into the cultural and spiritual fabric of the countryside in which they ruled. Villas also played a key role in projecting Rome's expanding imperial identity. Their architecture and decor became stages upon which owners could display their political loyalty, cultural sophistication, and global connections. Imported marbles from North Africa, painted vases from Greece, and exotic plants from the East were not just decorations. They were deliberate symbols of Rome's dominion. Statues of Egyptian deities or Alexandrian mosaics weren't rare, they were strategic. The villa owner, by surrounding themselves with imperial artifacts, positioned their estate as a microcosm of Rome's greatness. Guests walking through these halls were meant to feel not only the wealth, but the ideological reach of the empire. In that sense, the Roman villa became more than a home or a farm. It was a curated expression of power, status, and unity with the imperial mission. The organization wasn't only practical, it was deeply political, woven into every wall, column, and courtyard. 2,000 years later, Roman villas still inspire awe, not because they were big, but because they were brilliantly organized. The Romans understood something we still struggle with. Efficiency and beauty are not opposites. What surprised you most about how Romans organized their homes? Would you live in a villa if given the chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this look into ancient ingenuity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more historical deep dives every week. Thanks for watching.